Hi, this is Penn. Penn Jillette, Penn and Teller. Big guy does magic, smaller guy next to me. He does magic too. He doesn't talk that much. I want to talk about Joseph Jaffe is not famous. And Joseph Jaffe is not famous. Joseph Jaffe is wicked not famous. Joseph Jaffe is superlatively not famous, and for good and sufficient reason. I mean, maybe his guests are famous. Maybe his guests are famous. He gets some famous people on his guests, but Joseph Jaffe himself is not famous. That's the important part. You can have famous guests and still not be famous. And if you want an example of that, well, Joseph Jaffe would be a really good example. Teller would do a better job at a talk show, and Teller doesn't talk, which you'd think would be one of the major qualifications of being on a talk show and not being famous. What's that, Teller? Oh, yeah, Teller says, Joseph Jaffe, not famous. Love you.
We are human, we are animals, we crave the ability to be we. I know it's called me undies. We undies might have sounded differently, right?
Is it a disco now?
Yeah, it's the after party, so it's now we go with the flash.
My goal in life is to be a laptop sticker.
Me too.
And despite the best ministrations of your wife, you still look ugly.
It's a great honor, Mr. Jaffe. It's always nice to be with you.
I'm so happy to be with you. I'm honored.
Thanks for doing this too. It's a real service to the community.
What a great organization and a show that offers hope, optimism, creative solutions, entertainment.
Thank you for doing this, Joseph. It's your gift to the universe and it's appreciated.
Very human, and I like that.
Look at you! You are insane!
How did I do that?
You're insane!
Yeah, I might be. Whoa, look at that little bit of zooming in and out. This is what happens when you have a massive production budget and production studio and team, 17 different cameras and camera angles, and they still can't make me look beautiful. As Rashad said, I'm still ugly. I'm ugly. I wish I could say my mother dresses me funny, but maybe she used to. And upstairs in heaven right now, she's looking down on me and laughing at me, as she said. And I just really love the fact that she came up with my tagline. It's not TV. It's HPO, hope, positivity, and optimism. And if there's time left over, a little bit of marketing. Now, speaking of which, we mix it up all the time, every morning in the Collective Cafe. The Collective Cafe happens in a Discord server. All you got to do is go to discord.gg/Alpha Collective, Monday through Friday, 8 to 9 a.m. We hang out. We manifest on Mondays, Thought Leadership Tuesdays, Wellness Wednesday. Thursday is all about having guests from the show come and do a little bit of an after show, or sometimes we do live reads of books. And then on Friday, we have No Agenda Friday, where, as you guessed it, there is no agenda. Everyone gets invited on stage. You see that little QR code up there in the top. That QR code is if you want to subscribe to the podcast version of the Collective Cafe. We call that Collective Cafe to go. By the way, everything is free. There is no bait and switch. Hopefully it is a hook and hold that you will really love. The best way to start your day on the right foot, on the front foot. And I try and get that up typically about 30 minutes, 45 minutes from the end of the actual session. So whether you're commuting, whether you're on your treadmill, getting the kids ready for school, that disgusting commute, it doesn't have to feel disgusting if you have a little bit of HPO to go, if you know what I mean. And so now it would be great to have you in. So come and give us a try. We would love to have you. But now we need to just focus and get ready for our guest. And as you know, on the show, we always have a little bit of an homage, a bit of inspiration towards our guest. And this one is called Clarity. And no, it is not a typo, because my guest is Clara, or Clara, as we would say in South Africa, Clara Capano. And she has created this beautiful platform around Clarity. But I was thinking about the concept of clarity. What is clarity? Is clarity this idea to think clearly, to see clearly? Is clarity the ability to have priorities or to prioritize or actually to know what is important in life? Clarity equals clear. Clear equals transparent. When you don't have noise, when you only have signal, that's clarity. When you can see things for what they are, and maybe even what they can be, what they can become, that's clarity, as opposed to opacity, as opposed to muddy, as opposed to all of these filters, all of these masks that we put on that might try and make things look cleaner, but are they in fact clearer? When we see perfect bodies and perfect figures and perfect faces and perfect families, is that in fact clarity? Well, I think not. So as you can see me with my scruffiness today, with my, I don't know what's going on here, that whiteness, etc. There's no need. If you want to see me for who I am and see me clearly, then you should see me as I see myself and as I see you. So clarity for me may not be clarity for you, but ultimately if we can all agree to agree on the fact that when we put things between us, when we put obstacles between us, we create, just like when you go to and get your eyes checked, we get the fuzziness, we get the furriness, we get the blurriness, as opposed to 2020 vision. And for me, 2020 vision is to see us in a way a little naked, just a little naked, not like imagining your audience to be naked, as we see often the advice given to someone who's nervous on stage, but to see us as we were intended to be seen. And now it is my pleasure to bring on my guest, Clara Capano. Clara gives me a very clear bio. She's an international speaker and best-selling author. Her passion is in helping professionals get back in the driver's seat of their day so they can find the harmony between personal and professional lives. Let her bring you clarity. So without further ado, Clara, welcome clearly to the show.
Wow, what an amazing intro. I love how you broke all that down, Joseph. Thank you so much for letting me be a part of this with you.
Hey, I just make it up as I go along.
That's the best way to do it.
You know, it's funny because actually in the beginning, when I started doing my soliloquies, I actually was playing around with a teleprompter. And I loved it. I loved the fact that I could have a teleprompter in front of me and that you wouldn't even know if I was necessarily reading the teleprompter. And what it actually got me to do was to really choose my 400 words. And it was generally 400 words very clearly and very deliberately, very intentionally. And so every word mattered and meant something. And then I realized at some point that that's not who I am. I'm the keynote speaker that has no notes, that never knows what quite is going to come out of my mouth. And I just went back to off the cuff. It's a little bit mucky and muddy, and I might and say a few colloquialisms, but ultimately that is who I am. And so
yeah,
that's
and
what
that's
I did.
what resonates. I do a lot of the sames with all my, my reels and everything. And I notice that I have the deepest connections when I just speak and just am authentic. So I love that.
So we're going to do it. What did we call ourselves? I was like, did I call myself Grizzly or?
You were scruffy and I was wild with my curls. So.
Yeah, I said if we ever go into business together and we like start a podcast together, we'll be called, Scruffy and Wild.
I think it's good. I think we have something there.
It's the Scruffy and Wild show.
Yeah.
So sometimes I get so carried away on the show that I kind of forget to go into one of my favorite parts of the show, which is I call fun facts, where we send our investigators into the field to dig up these sordid past and mistakes that even Google and good old Chat GPT can't find. And we were very successful in being able to find these embarrassing truths about you. Now, of course, I'm just hyping it up just a tad. The idea, of course, is to humanize, if it even needs any humanization. And what we found out about you is that you have many guilty pleasures in life. You are an OG with respect to Law and Order. So tell us about what, I mean, there's so much to talk about with Law and Order. What attracted you to the series? When did you lose interest? Did you continue? Did you expand when they diversified? Or were you like a purist saying, I'm OG and OG only, I'm out?
Yes. Well, very important topics that we were talking about. So this is huge. So I think my love for Law and Order came in because my original path was that I was going to go to law school and become a judge. So I think there's always been something in me, and I love true crime. So I do a lot of like the Datelines and all of that because I just love seeing how it all works. So I have just, had my massive love affair. And I know that when I am traveling and I can be in a hotel room, and when I pull it up and they have all the Law and Orders, I just can just sit there and binge them after a long day of training and just let my brain expand. So I am loyal to the original series. I have watched all of the other ones, and I do like all the other ones, Criminal Intent, SVU, all of those, but the originals are definitely my heart space.
I'm going to try and attempt to actually bring that insight into the realm of what you do on a day-to-day basis, and almost thinking about business and work-life balance and being a momtrepreneur. And it's almost this idea of think about it in terms of doing well, there are two parts. One is there is a formula. It is a formula. It is a template. It is almost so staid and predictable that you might think that it would not work. And yet the predictability and the consistency of that little intro that has almost nothing to do with the story, and then they see a murder, and then you start off with order, and then you go to law, and so it's like a formula. Is there something there in terms of giving, let's say, a mom who's been a stay-at-home mom who's wants to get back into the workforce, who wants to become an entrepreneur, almost advising them to follow a formula, a template, and not be afraid to actually just be like everyone else, but maybe just a little bit different too?
Yeah. And I think one of the things that you just mentioned is the key. It's to follow who they are and not doing it the way everybody else is. And that was one of my biggest problems on my journey, is I was trying to fit into a box and do all the quote unquote right things based upon what society, my family, everybody else. And I failed. I had a major breakdown because I couldn't live up to these standards that others were creating for me. And so that's where I created, when we talk about formulas, I created the Clarity model to success. And so that's the formula that I teach most people. And just to break it down in its simplest forms is you take the word clarity, and C stands for the clarity of vision. There you go. The clarity of vision, the learning how to leverage your time, because time is so valuable. Learning how to articulate your value. You know, we all bring so much to the table, and we do it in our own unique ways. And so if we're going to truly serve, let's make sure that we are leading with value. We have to understand the importance of rest and reflection, because we cannot give our best to others when we are depleted. Then tying it back to the leveraging of the time, we have to invest our time in the right activities. We need to stop doing everything and really identify what are going to be the true needle movers in our success path. We have to start tracking and measuring so we know what really does work and what doesn't. And if things are not working, why? Let's explore why to see if we could retune, readjust, and adapt. And then finally, yes, we have to celebrate. So many of us wait too long for the celebrating, and we have to make sure that we're celebrating each and every day, as well as all of the milestones along the way to our big goals. And, you know, when we do this, it all leads off again with that vision and getting clear on not just your goals as to what I want to accomplish or financially, but why. You know, why is it important to us? What is the vision of who it is we need to become? Because that vision becomes that rocket fuel for us. That's what drives us. And that is my mantra, going back to what you kind of led off with, is you've got to create success on your terms, because it is your life and everybody has different dynamics, different demands from their lives, both personally and professionally. So we cannot do it the way everyone else does it. We have to take it all in and define the foundation and what is going to work for us and own it.
I mean, this concept of on your terms, it's a very powerful thought, because it does come down to everyone telling you what it should be. You know, I've had so many amazing women on the show over the last 3 years. And I'll never forget one conversation. I think it was Jenny Dietrich, and she said, it's a lie. It's an absolute lie when they say you can have it all as a woman. Yeah. You can have work, you can have home, you can be a mom, you can be it's, I mean, talk about burnout. And so I would love for you to talk to that, which is this idea of maybe you can have it all, but ultimately it's when you are being told what you can and can't do and where you have to fit and how you have to fit, as opposed to just being able to blaze your own trail.
Absolutely. And I think there's so many different levels in here. And somebody also once said to me, you can have it all, but you can't do it all. And that's, I think, a trap that we fall into. Everyone, especially women, but everyone does, is, and you know, if you're working with someone who is an A-type personality like me, the second you tell me I can't do something, I immediately have to show you that I can. So I then start feeding on this, I have to do it all. And it just starts layering and layering and layering. And that's what starts to, you know, cause us to spin out of control. And, you know, I think, again, it also comes down to in how we define success. You know, from an early age, for me, success meant that I could check off as many boxes that I can. And I would work as hard as I can so people would know that. And that's what was going to define success for me. Well, as I was going on there and chasing all these boxes, you know, I realized that those didn't bring me fulfillment. They were just another box to check off, but they weren't filling me up on the inside. And so I had to start to learn to redefine success. And this idea of, you know, having it all, there's trade-offs along the way. You know, yes, you can have a great career and you can have a family, but there's going to be trade-offs to it. So for me, just as an example, being a speaker, I'm on the road 30, 35 weeks out of the year. I am a single mom. So yes, do I have both of them? Yes, but there are trade-offs along the way, meaning that I can't be there 100% of the time with my son. So that means that when I'm done speaking, I need to then do FaceTime with my son to do his homework. So, you know, you have to make these trade-offs, because when I'm there, I have to be there and be 100% present. You know, so you have to look at these. There's certain trainings that I cannot accept because they would take me away from other important things that I need to do in being a mom. So you have to look at these, and the idea is you can have different versions of them. It may not be 100% of everything, but you just have to do the best with what you can. And also understanding that there are going to be different seasons. When I started off with my career, I was not on the road as much because my son was younger. As he's gotten older, I could then increase it. So understanding that this vision of what I wanted to create, I might have a smaller vision of that today, but that can morph into something greater and larger as time goes on. So I think, again, understanding these checks and balances and giving yourself the grace to know that there's a season for all things, and you can still have versions of it all, but you have to understand. And I do not like the word balance. And one of the things that I really strive to do is to help people find the harmony between it all, not the balance, because harmony comes in understanding that you have to, you know, show up and be truthful. You have to be honest. You have to set expectations with others. You need to ask for help. And again, you do the best you can with what you have, and you give yourself grace and kindness around the times that you fall, because you will fall from time to time.
I mean, that was a little mini masterclass. That was like a keynote. That was a TEDx. that was a Jaffe X. I loved it. And again, I've heard many expressions of that it isn't about equilibrium, meaning in the middle. It's about a sweet spot, and it's about it's about how does it work for you. Maybe it's 80-20 for you. Maybe it's 20-80. Maybe it's 45-55, but it has to work for you. And so balance implies the scales, implies equal, and it's not always equal. But then you come back with this really clear, Clar, I should say, idea of being able to think about seasons. Now, certainly, I hope I'm not in the fall of my career. I'd like to believe I'm in the spring, in this new version of myself. But you know, I can't go back and lament on the fact that I wasn't as present and available and actually physically there when my kids were growing up. I think of my daughter. I mean, she's you know, it's weird. Like, I think she's turning 22. And I think, oh man, just to like have her again be 3.5, daddy's little girl, just sitting on my lap, what I wouldn't do for that. And it's gone. But what I did have was she flew in, she actually turned 16. And while she was in flight, she arrived in Paris. I was there giving a keynote at the Louvre, of all places. And we were in Paris together, going to Versailles, and went for a run and went around the Louvre. And I'll never forget that moment. And so I guess you also have seasons in your relationship with your spouse, with your children. And instead of lamenting of what wasn't, celebrate what could become. For example, her coming with me to multiple speaking engagements and doing other things with me.
Exactly. And I think, you know, it goes back to, it's not about, are you there 100%? It's about, are you there present and being 100% present when you're there? And, you know, everything looks different. I remember when my son was born and I had received a promotion, and it was my dream job at the time. And so for me, there was no question. Well, I got a lot of flack from people in my inner circle who were telling me that I was not being a good mom, that I was putting my family second, all of these. But I knew internally that that was my calling. Yes, I still wanted to be there, and there was going to be a way to make it work. But I had to push all that judgment aside and lose some relationships. But you know, I had to follow what my path was. And now I'm at the point, my son is almost 18. And now I share my goals with him. I talk with him, and he's one of my greatest cheerleaders. And I have an opportunity to speak at an event in Madrid in spring. And it requires that I am there. And I actually have to fly to Madrid on his birthday. So I was talking with him, coming together with it, saying, you know, what do we think? And his response was, you need to go to Madrid. We can celebrate my birthday a day early. This is what you do. You love what you do. You're making an impact. You have to go. And so I think when we start following our path, when we live in our truth, again, the world sees it, and the right people are going to come together and support us. And it's not about time away from my son. Again, it's this vision of let's create our relationship and define what our mother-son relationship is going to be. Doesn't matter if other people agree with it or not. It's our relationship.
I have a much better suggestion, which is negotiate for him to come with you.
I know that was on the table, but he's right before graduation, so he's not able to. But yes, that was on the table.
You know, I actually have one of maybe my most incredible speaking engagement I ever had. I was in Barcelona with my son, going to 2 Barcelona games, and then we were flying football games, soccer matches, and then we're going to London. And I got a speaking engagement to speak in front of the Minister of Tourism, Mexico's Minister of Tourism, at an event in Campeche. And it was just in the middle of this Barcelona trip. And so I negotiated for my wife to fly into Barcelona, business class, to babysit my son, whilst I flew Barcelona, Madrid, Mexico, Campeche, and then flew back the next day on the governor's private jet from Campeche to Cancun to Madrid, back to Barcelona, got out the car, showered, and then left with my son, and we didn't miss 1 minute of the match. And
Oh my God, amazing. I need to pick your brain on how making that work for me too.
oh, I'm telling you, that was just dumb luck in
Yeah.
in the sense that they wanted me badly enough.
Mhm.
But you know, maybe part of the thing is if you don't like comes back to this idea of actually having it all. And one of the things that, you know, again, I've been fortunate enough. Look, I was brought up by a single parent. My dad died when I was 4. My mom, who's just passed away 2 months ago. I mean, this was the influence in my life.
Mhm.
And I've had so many amazing conversations with women. And, you know, there is this unbelievable double standard that exists in life and in business where women can't ask, they can't
Mhm.
speak up, they can't demand because they're seen as this, you know, again, men and women say the same thing the same way. One is seen as ambitious and a go-getter, and the other one is seen as aggressive and pushy.
Yep.
Um,
Exactly.
and
It's
yet,
so
if you
true.
don't ask, you won't get.
Exactly. And I see it, even in my job, for one of the trainings that I do, when I am on the road, I am consistently asked, who's taking care of your son? As if I just leave a bowl of food and water out. And I'm kind of like,
You're like, oh
his
crap.
father, but I've asked my male counterparts the same question. And none of them get asked this question.
Wow.
And it's that standard. And that's where, and I was raised by a working mom and, again, about the trade-offs that you have to make. And for me, when I started being truthful and started laying down what I needed to do, what I noticed is the quality of my life became so much better because I still work very, very hard, but I have again found that way, that sweet spot that I kind of play along the way. And, and I do all these things and my income has gone up, but the quality of my life and what it helped me do is to, again, redefine success. So for me, it's not, am I checking off all these boxes? It's every day, am I truly serving? Am I showing love? Am I inspiring? My big goal this year is to impact 1 million lives or more. And, so every day, what did I do today to be a part of that vision? And when I live by my compass, by my truth, the right people surround me, the right energy surrounds me, and just success in life comes together.
I still, I'm being a typical male by mansplaining to you. I'm being a little self-deprecating, but here's the man telling you what you should be doing. What you should be doing is saying to these mofos that are asking you who's taking care of your son to say, don't worry, he's tied up and we have this machine that feeds him, and remotely I can actually look into it, and just if he's good, I can send him a treat. Look.
I love that. I think that's fantastic. I might start doing that. Yes. It's so true though, because again, we just have to, do that. But again, there's all these standards and expectations put out there, and no one is living your life except you. So why give them a reason to define what success should look like for you?
But I feel like just, the energy that I get from you is that you are the typical water that goes around the rock versus beating down the rock. When I meet people here in the US and they go, where are you from? And I go, Westport. And they go, no, where are you really from? And it just bugs me and it pisses me off because I've been here since 1997. I'm a US citizen, but that's a chip on my shoulder.
Yeah.
And then I go, well, where are you from? Are you, do your ancestors go back thousands of years here? Or, and so what I've learned as I've chilled a little bit and grown a little bit older and whiter here in the beard is you can't blame them. It's just these are what society has conditioned us to respond in an awkward and almost templatized way. So just move with it. And so now I say I'm from Westport, Connecticut, but originally I'm from South Africa.
Yeah. Exactly. And again, just those are things that I'm like, no one's being malicious about it. They're curious. So I get it with my name all the time. Nobody ever gets my name right. I am Carla, Claire, Ciara, from time to time. And, again, they don't mean anything negative by it. It's just that's what they're seeing. And,
exactly. It isn't. Well, I get, I got Capono right.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's just, you just have to learn that they're going to have their own perceptions. They're going to have their own judgments based upon their perceptual map. And that is fine. But
I get Jeff a lot, by the way. I get Jeff a lot. Joseph, Jaffe, Jaffe Juice becomes
I
Jeff.
would imagine. Yeah. And it's like, you know, that they can have their thoughts, but at the end of the day, I have to make the decisions for my life.
I don't care what you call me as long as you call me.
That's what I said too. I've been called much worse.
Yeah. The only thing I don't like is dear influential blogger, comma, you know, or dear first name, comma, last name. I'm like, no, I'm not going to let you get away with this one. Sorry.
Exactly.
All right. So while we're in we flip between sublime and ridiculous on the show. Now it's time to just get a little bit ridiculous, because we did find out there's no way I was letting you get away with the fact that Duran Duran is your life and love.
There's my man. There's my boy, John.
There, you know, I love Duran Duran as well. I got to tell you. I got to tell you.
Yes,
should I give you that look?
It has been a love affair since 6th grade.
So it just seems appropriate that you and I right now are going to have to do some karaoke singing.
Okay.
I'm assuming you know this song. Is there something I should know? And wouldn't it just be great if we actually had some backing music?
I think this is fantastic.
Please tell me now. Is there something I should know? Is there something I should say that'll make you come my way? Do you feel the same? 'Cause you don't let it show. Now, how was that? You did you expect that on the show?
That I did not, and I love it. Yes, I just got my tickets to see them this summer at Red Rocks. So yes.
Don't you love, by the way, the fact that all of these 80s bands, child of the 80s, are accessible to us now? I mean, I went to see, like, it was the craziest thing. I went to see the Pet Shop Boys at MSG. I went with my wife on the same night that Conor McGregor was fighting in his like UFC. You have never seen two more opposite groups of people in your entire
Oh my gosh,
life.
that's fantastic. Yes.
And the people that were the most dressed up were the people going to see Conor McGregor, were like dressed up as, like, I don't know, leprechauns or so there you go.
Oh, I love it. So good. That made me smile. I love that.
My other band was Aha. Loved. I've seen them once. I saw Duran Duran was actually one of the first concerts I ever saw in South Africa. As bands started coming back into the country, kind of, you know, as the country transitioned out of the apartheid years, I remember Duran Duran came, and it was just incredible.
Well, you need to put it on your calendar, because May 21st is known in my family as John Taylor Day. Because in 1985, when they were working on the theme song for A View to a Kill, they were in San Francisco, and my mom graciously took me out of school and brought me up to the radio station, and I got to hug John Taylor.
Oh,
so
no way.
May 21st, 1985 at 2:54 in the afternoon. It's officially John Taylor Day.
All right. So I have one more surprise for you. And no,
is it John Taylor? Is he here?
No, it's not John Taylor. But I'll try and get them on the show, and then you can come. So what I've started doing on the show is going to Chat GPT and asking Chat GPT to come up with 100-word intro or bio intros to my guest. So today, what I did is I went to Chat GPT and I said, I'd like a 100-word intro to Clara Capano, but I'd like you to use as many song titles from Duran Duran as possible. And this is what ChatGPT came up with. Welcome to this amazing talk show, folks. We have a special guest who is definitely hungry like the wolf when it comes to achieving success. Joining us today is the one and only Clara Capano, an international speaker and best-selling author who knows how to make her audience come undone. With over 20 years of experience, Clara is the ultimate wild boy's guide to leadership, sales, and personal development. Her latest book, Find Your Focus, 52 Weeks of Clarity, is truly a Rio of inspiration for those looking to reach the top. So let's give a warm welcome to Clara Capano and enjoy a view to a kill of her expertise.
I love that. I think I'm going to use that from now on.
Can you believe
That
that?
is awesome. I love that.
You know, it's funny because when we think about this, everyone's talking about AI and how we're all being replaced, and creativity is creativity and originality, and you know, I don't know how many deep fakes will be dumb enough to start singing karaoke on a talk show. But let's just hope the machines, I don't want the machines to be smarter than me. I just don't want them to be dumber than I am, because I'm going to win in dumbness.
Oh my gosh. That was one of the best moments I've had. So thank you.
Well, thank you as well. It was very easy to sing Duran Duran with you. But now let's go back to the sublime. Okay. You see, we head from one to another, and I've been so enamored with this concept of clarity. As I often say on the show, when you have 450 guests, you might be the first person that focuses on clarity. And we've certainly had a ton of amazing leaders and authors, etc. So I found this quote for you. And it actually comes from Brendan Burchard. And I guess I've got to have Brendan on the show at some point.
I love Brendan. He's amazing.
And so Brendan says, doubt increases with inaction. Clarity reveals itself in momentum. Growth comes from progress. For all these reasons begin. And it just made me think about where clarity presents itself on the journey. In this particular case, getting off your butt, just doing it. But he seems to be intimating that clarity, if you don't have it at the beginning, it will become clear if you just actually start and do it. I wonder what you thought about clarity. When does it present itself? Beginning, middle, end, all of the above?
Yeah. And I think, again, there is a little bit of all of the above. You know, for me, I was introduced to this concept, and the idea is there is the rule of confusion and the rule of clarity. You know, confused people don't move forward. But when you are clear, you take action and you go forward. So I think, again, it's a starting point. And that's why in the success model, the Clarity success model, we start off with that clarity of vision, because I think that's, again, where it all begins. But then as you start working through it, you're going to have to keep changing things. You know, you're going to start doing some work. You're going to start taking some actions. Some of them will work. Some of them won't. So when they don't work, you might get confused again. But then you got to get clarity based upon your market research, your feedback, all of those. And so it's this evolution along the way. But the truth is you do have to get into action, because if you just stand still, you're not going anywhere. So the idea is it's always this sort of checks and balances. It's always this evolution of what you're doing, because not only do each of us change, the way that business is conducted change, the market around us changes. So we have to constantly adapt and evolve. And that's always going to challenge our clarity and cause us to have to pivot. So you do want some sort of clarity in the beginning, because that's what gets you started. But you're never going to have 100%. It's always going to be testing and retesting and, you know, readapting and adjusting as you're going along, you know, the power of the pivot. And I love in the quote that he did where he talked about the idea of, you know, making progress. You know, one of my favorite things that I say in my trainings is the idea of progress, not perfection. And I think that the road to clarity is understanding you've got to keep moving forward. It's never going to be perfect. You know, you want to get in these, you want to get clear on, again, what's your optimal schedule? What is your value propositions? But the idea is you have to be always moving forward. And the more clear you are, the more confident you will be. And when you are more confident, that encourages you to keep taking action.
Now, we have a bunch of very interesting new terms in this discussion. We have this idea of confusion. And I was just thinking, is the enemy of clarity confusion? Is confusion the enemy of clarity?
Yeah, I think in some way it is, because again, when you're confused, that keeps you from being confident in taking action. So I think that is a great way of looking at it.
And then there's the other idea of clarity challenges, and I like this idea, because what it says to me is you can be unbelievably clear and concise and laser focused and singular in terms of your why and in terms of your mission and your vision, your value proposition. But guess what? Life happens, and suddenly there is murkiness. Suddenly you need to kind of take that that Windex and work on cleaning up maybe the window, not from the inside, but from the outside.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about how important that agility is, that ability to adapt and evolve is, in terms of maintaining this clarity fitness, if you will.
Yeah. And I think, part of, being clear is also understanding, just like you said, life happens, failure happens. And I think when we try to ward off failure and we think that that's the key to success, is to not failing, it's a bunch of BS, because we learn from failures. And as long as we're learning, we're going forward. Also, it reminds me of the quote from Charles Darwin, and I'm not going to get it exactly right, but something to the essence of, it's not the strongest that survives, it's the species that learns to evolve. And part of clarity is understanding it is an evolution process, because things are constantly going to change, and we need to be open to changing with them. And if we do not understand and accept that as part of the process, that's going to cause more confusion, because again, clarity unlocks the ability to keep going forward and to also embrace changes. Another one of my favorite quotes from Robin Sharma is, change is scary at first, it's messy in the middle, and it's glorious at the end. And you were talking about that murkiness. Well, we can't live in that murkiness. And unfortunately, too many people, when it gets hard, when it gets challenging, when they get confused, they go back to their comfort zone. Where with clarity, it's again, trusting the process. It's believing in yourself. It's following through on your core ideals and values to push through, because it will be glorious. But then after it's glorious, you're going to have to change again, and it's going to get scary again, and it's going to get messy again. And it's this constant, moving forward and moving through the challenges, the changes, the obstacles, and not looking at those challenges as obstacles, but what is the opportunity? What can I learn from this? How can I adapt and evolve? I mean, I am not the same person I was in my 20s. The programs that I've created are not the same as they were 3 years ago. It's always understanding this. And again, being able to accept and have the clarity, the insight, the trust to know that it's never going to be perfect, and it's never going to stay the same.
What advice, and look, your new book, I like to do this, which is I like to paint the entire show with the book. So we'll put the background.
Oh my God, you're fantastic.
We'll do that. We'll even make you the unofficial sponsor of the show and give you a little logo in the top right. How about that?
Amazing.
So you see how it looks as well. But you're definitely in the book, and the book is called. It comes out in July. So if you're watching this after July, then go buy it. And if you're watching it before July, then go and pre-buy it. The Mother of All Success Manuals, like Chicken Soup for the Soul, how to control your days, lose the guilt, and find harmony between work and life. Not balance, but harmony between work and life. I want to talk specifically about what it is to be a woman, a mom, someone who is in their life looking now to invent or reinvent themselves. I want to focus on guilt, and I want to focus on this idea of burnout, and finding not the balance again, but the harmony. One of those pieces of advice is this concept of being intentional. So I would love to just hear some of your thoughts on it. It seems tricky, it seems challenging, it seems difficult, which is being intentional, fighting burnout, dealing with guilt, imposter syndrome, dealing with all the mansplaining. How do you kind of find any kind of clarity amidst that mess?
So, this is such a great discussion because I think that so much of this overwhelming guilt, again, comes from trying to meet the standards that others have set for us. And it's scary because it goes against the grain of what society has told us all along. And so that is what comes back to we having to define for ourselves, what does success look like? And, we can beat ourselves up all day long with the guilt of never being there enough and missing these opportunities. But what we have to start understanding is, let's focus on a lot of the good things. And so this book is going to be a guidebook to, again, help those working moms to not only, again, learn what is their vision, but learn how to communicate their vision so that others understand what they are working towards, and it allows them to be a part of the journey with them. We are going to learn about setting expectations. How do we communicate? When are we available? And learning how to say no without it sounding like saying no. Learning how to put your optimal schedule together so that you can work within the parameters of what works best for you. So, for example, when my son was younger and I would pick him up at school, my days would have to end at about 2:30. I could come back to work a little bit later in the day, but the idea is you have to come up with what is your optimal schedule and, get as close to that as possible. And when you start to communicate these items, when you start to control your time and be, again, intentional, the right people start to work with you, and it's going to help all of you achieve things. And this idea of, again, harmony. It doesn't mean you have to work 24/7, because the truth is, as women, and I'm not saying anything against men, I'm just not a man. So as women, I know that we try so hard to be all things to all people, and we try to make ourselves available to all people. Well, the reality is when you try to be everything to everyone, you can't show up and be anything to anyone. And when you try to be overly available, you really cannot be available. So we have to, again, start letting go of the judgment that others have and start looking at ourselves in the mirror. What is it that we need to do? Because at the end of it all, it doesn't matter if others are agreeing with us or disagreeing. What matters is our circle. Is it working for you, for your circle, and for your family? And so I think, again, you have to, it's not necessarily that the guilt is going to go away, because I think it's a human emotion, but I think it's a matter of not letting that guilt run your life. I've had several moments where I could have, gone back and just fell into that big pile of tears in the floor. I've had a lot of missteps, but, the idea is they happened. They are mistakes. They happen. How can I learn from them and go better? Because the truth is that guilt is not serving us. It's not going to make us any better. It's not going to make us better as a mom, as a spouse, as a friend. It does not serve us. So we have to make sure that when we get up in the morning and when we look at ourselves in the mirror, we start to have love for that person in the mirror, acceptance for that person, faults and alls, and understanding that we are perfectly imperfect the way that we are.
I almost feel like you've been living inside my brain, because I've had this. I had one of my soliloquies early on called "Perfectly Imperfect." This idea of just or imperfectly perfect, whichever way you look at that. And it was actually in response to Seth Meyers talking to Howard Stern, and just talking about the fact that when you were in the office, it was kind of perfectly imperfect. It was like basically just like shooting the breeze, shooting the shit, so to speak, just like talking about stupid things, making kind of awkward and sometimes inappropriate jokes. But it wasn't like all super productive machines. It was just about being able to sometimes goof around or goof off. And that was part of the imperfection. I also loved there how you spoke about guilt, just like fear, just like regret. These are all negative emotions, but that can actually be positive and productive and constructive when harnessed. It's almost like sometimes feeling lonely or even just a little bit depressed, which is just embrace it, swim in it, submit to it, and then harness it or move on.
Exactly. Exactly. And again, I mean, we can beat ourselves up all day long, but what is that really going to do for us? It's not going to do anything for us. It's not going to move us further. It's not going to erase anything. So again, we have to, learn to bring these items in and again, just learn how to get better. It's that progress, not perfection. It's never going to be perfect. But as long as we are moving forward and doing, and in all honesty, at the end of the day, did you give your best? And on some days, our best is 20%, but that's what it is. And at the end of the day, if you can be like, I truly gave my best, that's all that really matters.
There's also like a weird, I don't want to say hypocrisy, but let's just call it, hypocrisies. This is how we're bringing up our kids. Mm-hmm. You did your best. I didn't expect you to win, just do your best. Here's your participation trophy. Mm-hmm. But yet we don't give ourselves the participation trophy. And
not at all.
So what's up with that?
I mean, I see it with my son when he is so stressed out in school. Do I tell him to go and work harder, or do I say, no, go and take a break? But we don't do that for us. It's exactly true. We would never want our kids, our spouses, our families. We wouldn't want our best friends to be beating themselves up. In fact, we're the ones there talking them off the ledge, but we don't do it to ourselves. And so it's exactly right. It is total hypocrisy in doing that. And we need to start understanding and start living by the things that we are telling others to do as well, and being kinder to ourselves. We beat ourselves up so much, and we need to start being kinder. And one of the things that I have learned for myself is, a gratitude practice. And the idea is so many of us practice gratitude for others, but are we practicing gratitude for ourselves? And being able to take time each day to say, what is it that I like about myself? Or even at the end of the day, what are 3 great things that happened today? So that we are consciously putting ourselves in the positivity of each and every day and the moment and the beauty that we bring. Again, not the perfection, but in all the imperfection, there still is beauty.
How do you break the cycle, though? Because if you're just used to a certain way of living and functioning, how do you break the cycle to do something for yourself? I've actually personally pushed back on this idea of the gas mask comes down in the plane and they say, put it on your mouth before someone else's. And I'm like, if that happened to me with my kid or my wife, there's no way I would put it on for me first. And yet I understand the concept of self-love and self-care. But how do you break the cycle, particularly as a woman, when you're just used to sacrificing and being selfless?
Yeah. For me, it was a mindset shift. I had to really redefine this whole idea of self-care and understanding that if I truly want to give the best of myself, I have to show up as whole as I possibly can. And I agree with you. That concept of the air mask is great, but in reality, I don't know if I would do that. I heard it in a different way, and this made more sense to me. And it's about the human body. And what they talk about is that the role of the heart is to pump blood to all the other organs. But the organ that the heart pumps blood to first is itself. Because if the heart does not have the energy to pump blood, it's not going to be successful in making sure the other organs are healthy too. And to me, that made much more sense. I cannot show up and give my best when I'm training, coaching, writing, taking care of my kids, whatever it is. If I am depleted, worn out, burned out, tired, I cannot serve at the highest level. So I don't do self-care necessarily for me. I do it so that I can serve others. Because if I want to hit my vision of impact, I have to show up with the energy to do that. So self-care for me is not only about looking good, feeling good. It's again about making sure that I have the energy and the focus to do what I am here to do.
I have this new sound effect. Let's see if I can work it.
That's gold, Jerry. Gold.
That's gold, Jerry. Gold.
Jerry, it's gold.
Well,
good old Banyan.
Yeah. It's lovely, this idea of you're actually practicing self-care for others, which is a beautiful, almost oxymoron. Yeah. And it works beautifully. Well, I always do a couple of things with my guests, which is tell them what their next book is going to be called. And you're like, Joe, give me a break. This one is on its way out, but But I love the concept of the participation trophy. Maybe that's the next book, is
Oh,
this
I
idea
like that one.
of really kind of, you know, starting to walk the talk. But truthfully, you don't need to publish this book because you have it in your model.
Yeah.
It's right there at the end, and don't think for a second that I glossed over it. Yes, celebrate.
Yeah.
You know, commiserate the losses, but celebrate the wins, and really, really indulge and treat yourself, and hopefully everyone else around you will treat you too, because you've worked hard, you've earned it, you deserve it.
Yes, for sure. Absolutely. And just even as small as at the end of the day, what are 3 great things that happened? And celebrate each and every day because they truly are a gift.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I wanted to ask you just one random question, which has nothing to do with even the subject matter expertise, but you as an entrepreneur and as a creator, your name is Clara. You've created a whole platform around Clarity. You could almost look at it as being fatalistic, like it was meant to be.
Yeah.
But just it'd be interesting, because I imagine there's so many people watching this, and male, female, non-binary, whatever the case may be, but they're at a point now where they've been let go, or they're jaded, or they don't want to do the commute anymore. They're looking to reinvent themselves, and they're like, what's my angle? What's my hook? What's the thing that I'm going to become known for? So maybe take us back to the genesis of, you're sitting there whiteboarding thinking, I don't know, should it be grit? Should it be resilience? You know,
Okay.
how did clarity come? How did clarity become clear?
Well, it definitely is fatalistic because I have 3 siblings, Lisa, Paul, and Amy. Very common names. And then all of a sudden, Clara comes out of nowhere. And I hated my name growing up, because growing up in the 80s, I wanted all the personalized things. I wanted the personalized nameplates and license plates and pins and all of that. And I could never find any of them. So I tried to change my name. I went through all of these things because I hated my name. And again, nobody could ever get it right. And then finally, I was probably in maybe my late 20s, and I was working in real estate. I managed several different real estate offices, and I had one of my agents, and he was kind of a crotchety old man. I loved him to death, but he was one of those, older men. And he would come up to me and he'd be like, can I get a little clarification from you? And I'd be like, dude, that is so lame. And then all of a sudden, one day, brilliant. So, yep. And so I think, again, somehow my parents knew I was here to bring clarity to the world. And that's where I got my name. So yeah, it was sort of a moment of just looking and finally bringing it together. And sort of when I was whiteboarding with my coaches, what is it that I do? We kind of came back to it, and the whole Got Clarity was born.
I love it. Got Clarity. So it's like the new Got Milk. It's now Got Clarity. But I think the message, what I take away from that, and I would love for you to build on that too, is that for people that are trying to search and find their point, their place, what they do, where they fit in, sometimes it is what's in a name. Sometimes it is a name. Sometimes it's their unique background.
Yeah.
Sometimes it might be the fact that they live in Connecticut, but they're from South Africa.
Exactly.
But it's something like, I always use the Dr. Seuss quote: "You are the best you that you can be." Right? You are the. I mean, there's only one Madonna Capono, right? International.
Exactly.
I've decided to give you your 80s.
There
your
we
80s
go.
name.
I love it. Yeah. And it is. And again, just, kind of thinking again, why are you here? What is your message? And there's always something in there. I mean, even, with your HPO?
Yeah.
The hope, what was it? The
Positivity and
optimism, bringing on that. And again, sometimes it's just in those little acronyms that we can create to, talk about what we are, because we all have something special inside of us, and we all have a message that needs to be heard regardless of what we're doing.
Yeah. And the whole idea is just paying attention and being open to the universe and possibilities, right? This was, in a way, something my mom came up with that I've internalized, that now I keep her with me. And of course, going back to, it's not TV, it's HPO. It just works so beautifully. And so open yourself up to the universe and possibilities. But before you do that, open yourself up to the mother of all success manuals. I do see this as a 58,000 book series, the mother of everything. And the place to begin is Madonna Capono, international speaker, best-selling author, Duran Duran impersonator, participation trophy holder. But enough about that. If you want to contact her and you want to find out how to lead with value, because money flows to value, follow her on Instagram. Find her in the club. She might be the only person left, but we're, who knows what will become of Clubhouse. Eat corn with her on TikTok. You're definitely on all the platforms. And,
I am.
And remember the book, The Mother of All Success Manuals, How to Control Your Days, Lose the Guilt, and Find Harmony Between Work and Life, is out right now, depending on what day or month or year it is, or pre-order it. Subscribe to a podcast, The Working Woman's Channel. And finally, last but definitely not least, join her free Facebook group, Smart Woman, Smart Choices. Love it. And, let's just mention one more thing. Just if you want to find out more about the Clarity model, just go to claracapano.com. It is as simple as that. I've had fun with you. Normally my guests tell me that they had fun, but I had fun.
Oh my gosh, this was probably the most fun I've had on a show. So this is awesome. I love it. I love all the little fun things that you brought in.
You even love the fact that Chuck Norris gets the last word.
You are Chuck Norris approved.
And we will be back soon. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching the show about hope, positivity, optimism, and if there's time left over, a little bit of marketing with your host, multiple author, and global keynote speaker, Joseph Jaffe. If you like the show, tell a friend or two. Please subscribe to the show. And if you want to get inside news, previews of upcoming guests, and much more, visit josephjaffe.com/subscribe to sign up for the show's newsletter.
And despite the best ministrations of your wife, you still look ugly.